Proverbs 16:27 says, "Idle hands are the devil's workshop." That one simple verse inspired a stoner comedy horror movie. Of course, we're talking about 1999's Idle Hands. I heard a lot about it when it first came out, mainly because all my friends were into it. It's got a ton of pop punk references, stupid humor, and Jessica Alba. I think she alone made thousands of boys watch this movie. Even with her in it, I never watched it. It's time to change that. First off, the opening credits are genuinely terrifying. I thought this was a comedy. I'm getting freaked out in the first 3 minutes. After that, we see that it's around Halloween. The perfect setting too, because this just so happens to be the same neighborhood as Halloween. How about that?
Totally.
We see the Tobiases, Norma and Gary. Gary's played by Fred Ward, the perfect on-screen dad. Well, as they all get snuggled into bed, Norma looks up to see a note scribbled on the ceiling. Gary has a look, and of course, nothing. But then they hear something downstairs. When Gary doesn't come back, Norma has a look around, finding blood. She runs to her son Anton, who isn't very helpful, then tries to call the cops. Well, I mean, he didn't lie. He was under the bed. A couple of days later, we meet Anton, who doesn't know anything happened to his parents.
Hey Mom, we're out of milk!
You see, he's a lazy stoner who has no ambitions and doesn't even put his pants on to leave the house. In fact, the only reason he goes outside in the first place is just to get more pot. He meets with his two friends, Mick, played by Seth Green, and P-Nub, played by the dude from Daredevil. They aren't too different from Anton, lazy stoners who joke around and live in their parents' basement. Outside, we see Molly riding by, Anton's neighbor and his crush. She dropped her book, so he rushes over to give it back to her. First, he smells it, which probably just smells like a book. Then, once she answers the door, he chickens out and runs away.
Hey!
Now we meet Debbie LaCure. At first, she's pretty mysterious, but we see that she is hunting someone, or something, and she found a pattern. So now she knows where to go. And you guessed it, the same town Anton lives in. Speaking of Anton, let's check in with him. He's making a sandwich and really not paying attention. If he was, he would see that the knife he's using is covered in his parents' blood. Of course, he bites into it and then sees his mistake and freaks out, thinking there's a killer in the house. He makes the dog look around. After finding nothing and running around scared for a while, he bumps into his parents, who were hiding out, dead in the Halloween decorations. Wouldn't you have smelled that? Mick and P-Nub stop by for a visit, seeing the dead Tobiases, and they start to put the pieces together. In Norma's hand is a piece of Anton's shirt. That means that the killer was wearing it. Or maybe he's the killer? Mick calls the cops just as Anton starts to go nuts. More specifically, his hand starts to go nuts. Without even knowing what he's doing, he kills Mick, a bottle to the head. He tries to warn P-Nub and tells him to run, but once his hand gets a hold of a saw blade, it's all over. So you can see what's going on here. Anton's hand is possessed Evil Dead style. Oh no, not the cat! I'm just gonna assume he survived that. Anton's out looking for his cat, which just so happens to be in Molly's bushes, and she invites him in, the hand trying to kill her the whole time. Anton tries to warn her that he's dangerous, but that only turns her on more. Not wanting to hurt his crush, he ties up his hand, and that turns her on more. Things are looking pretty good for our hero, until Molly's parents come home and he books it out of her window. That night he buries the bodies of his family and friends, only to hear Mick speaking out. Is he alive? Well, not really. Now, Mick and Peanut are zombies. In the morning, Anton comes downstairs seeing his friends and thought it was all just a dream. But after closer inspection, it was indeed not a dream. They explained that they saw a bright light with angels singing, but they didn't want to walk that far, so they came back to Earth. This is the kind of laziness we're talking about here, folks. Once again, Anton's hand goes back to being possessed, and the friends assume that it's the devil. But they don't know that much about that stuff, so they're going to have to call in some help from their friend Randy, who's over at the Burger Jungle, a fast food place that I really want to try. But Randy doesn't have any time for Anton and his antics. He's got to eat. But Anton knows that he has to talk to him, so he dresses up like an employee and heads to the drive-thru. Here's a nice little cameo from Tom DeLonge. Anton talks to Randy, who admits that he doesn't really know that much about the devil. He just likes listening to metal music. However, he does offer a bit of advice.
Idle hands are the devil's playground.
All Anton has to do is keep his hands busy, and then he can't hurt anyone. Outside, the cops are called for a noise complaint, and they see Anton chilling on the couch with a couple of corpses. So now they know he's the killer. They break in, guns a-blazing, only to see those dead corpses move.
I think.
After they freak out a bit, Anton realizes that jail would be a good thing for him. He wouldn't be able to hurt anyone there. So he asks to get locked up. But he's not putting down the crochet needles, and the hand springs to action, killing both the cops. At this point, Anton's had enough of all this. It's time to chop the hand off. Once he's free of it, he throws it in the microwave and nukes it, seemingly killing it. While his friends are out getting a first aid kit, Molly rings the doorbell, wanting to go to the school dance, even though he really should be heading to the hospital. It kind of works in his favor, however, because it's a Halloween dance, so they can dress up. And I would say Anton fits the part of a guy who just chopped his hand off.
Cut off his own hand.
Cute.
Mick and Peanut come back to an empty house. Mick fixes his friend, so he doesn't have to carry his head around anymore. And they go to get some food, opening the microwave and releasing the hand. I think now's a good time to bring up that the hand is actually a seasoned actor. Christopher Hart also plays Thing from both the Addams Family movies. How did he get that job? Did he train for it? Anyway, Debbie pulls into town, and the first place she goes is the bowling alley, where she meets Randy, and they hit it off.
You looking for a ball? 'Cause I could help you find one that's the right size for you.
She tells him that she comes from a long line of priests that serve to stop a force that inhabits the laziest person it can find. And then at midnight, it'll drag one of its poor victims to hell.
That's some weighty shit there. Yeah.
After a couple of beers, Randy brings up Anton and how he was acting strangely earlier. Now she knows that's her guy. The friends arrive at the dance, who have The Offspring playing, by the way. All the high school dances I went to had lame DJs. Luckily for the guys, it's Halloween, so everyone thinks they're just in costume and starts dancing with them. Debbie finally runs into Anton, and she knows exactly what to do. Kill him! But after learning that he already cut off his hand, she knows they have to hunt it down.
I cut it off, okay?
Anton gets on stage and tries to warn everyone that a psycho killer is on the loose. And of course, no one believes him. Until Dexter Holland gets scalped, then everyone goes running. Molly and her friend, Tanya, escape the chaos in the air ducts, only to get to a dead end. The only way to get out is through the fan. Thinking quickly, Molly uses her friend's shoe to stop the blade and climb on down. Tanya, on the other hand, get it? Hand? Well, she's not so lucky. The killer hand pulling the shoe out, and she gets sucked right up into the fan, chopping her to bits. The hand gets a new disguise, I'm not really sure why, and then everyone finds themselves in the auto shop classroom, where Molly's been tied up and the lift is gonna crush her against the ceiling. To make matters worse, it's almost midnight and the hand wants to drag her to hell. Anton and his friends try to stop the lift, but the hand's just too strong. That's when they get an idea. An admittingly dumb idea, but an idea nonetheless. They get the hand high. It works, and now the three friends can stop the car and save the girl. But it's not dead yet, and it springs to life just as Debbie comes in to chuck her dagger at it, vaporizing the idle hand. It's kind of anticlimactic, don't you think?
That's it?
Anton gets Molly free. They make out under the car for a bit, which seems like a bad idea. Yep, a bad idea. Mick and Peanut see the light, and this time they actually walk toward it. Later on, Anton wakes up in the hospital alive, where he still has his two best friends. Except now, they've been promoted to being guardian angels.
No, we're your guardian angels.
And that was Idle Hands. Did it live up to the hype? Sure, it was pretty good. I like all the late 90s things it had going on. The Offspring playing at the dance and a Tom DeLonge cameo. It really brings me back. You can tell all the actors had a good time on set too. It really seemed like they could be friends in real life. Seth Green said that the goal for the movie was to have pot smoking save the day and Jessica Alba's top ripped off. I'd say they had their priorities right. Green has shown interest in doing a sequel and having all the cast return, which would be pretty cool. However, it doesn't look like that's going to happen because in November 2024, they announced a remake. I don't know how I really feel about that. The original's pretty good, just leave it alone. But who knows, they might have something new to add. What are they going to do to up the ante though? Pot's pretty much legal now, and they have to try to keep it edgy like before. Maybe this would be a good time for a Breaking Bad Idle Hands crossover. Walter White's cooking and his hand gets possessed. I'd watch that. I give Idle Hands 3 things out of 4.
I'm gonna call 911. What's the number?